Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Toby's Talk Show. This is episode number 53, and today we will be looking at everything that has happened so far in this year's NBA free agency. So, obviously, this wasn't the most star studded free agency, but there were a lot of big names that could change who could win the championship depending on where they go. And obviously, we know like Montrezl Harrell, the Lakers, and we'll talk about that in a second. And those moves can, you know, be a big deal in the NBA when it comes to which contenders are now better than the other contenders. So we're just going to go through probably best to worst free agents. I'm not going to go through every single one, obviously, because there are hundreds, but we'll go through the most important ones. And we'll start off with Fred VanVleet going to the Raptors. So this was a pretty big deal because Fred VanVleet was probably the best free agent, obviously, besides Anthony Davis, who's most likely going to return to the Lakers. Fred VanVleet is a great player. He put up 17 and 6 last year, and he's only getting better, and he's still 26 years old. The problem was with COVID, not everyone had a lot of cap space, and so it was mostly down to teams like the Pistons, the Knicks, the Raptors, maybe the Hornets. And when the Pistons drafted Killian Hayes, who I'm sure you guys know I'm a big fan of Killian Hayes, they didn't need Fred VanVleet. They were going to go young, and they already had their point guard figured out. So it was mostly down to the Knicks and Raptors. The Hornets, as we know, signed Gordon Hayward, so they were pretty much off the board, and we'll get into Gordon Hayward in a second. But it was down to the Knicks and Raptors, and I just think Fred VanVleet wanted to stay in Toronto. He didn't want to go to a team like New York who wasn't ready to win. And I think it makes sense. 4 years, 85 was a pretty solid deal for both sides. Fred VanVleet got paid, and the Raptors didn't overspend on him. He gave him like a Malcolm Brogdon deal, and he's, I would say, the same tier as Malcolm Brogdon. So I think it was a great deal for both teams, and it keeps the Raptors in contention. Obviously, they lost players like Serge Ibaka, who we'll get into in a second, but Fred VanVleet was a big piece of that team, and they get to keep him, and I think that's a perfect place for Fred. They gave him a chance, and now he's getting paid by that team. So I think I'm a fan for both sides of that, signing, and I think it's a good signing for both the Raptors and Fred VanVleet. The next deal, which probably shocked a lot of people, and that was Montrezl Harrell going to the Lakers. I was personally very shocked by this. I was not expecting this. I thought it was either Clippers or Raptors for Harrell, and he chose the Lakers. It's a great move for the Lakers, who just lost Dwight, and he's going to be that guy when it's Lakers down by 2, 1 minute left in the fourth quarter. Well, he'll be in, and hopefully they could give the Lakers the rebounds and putbacks and everything they need from him. He is definitely an upgrade from Dwight and JaVale McGee, and somehow the Lakers got him for the mid-level exception, I believe. And I mean, I don't understand why Montrez did that. I felt like he could get paid, and he took a 1+1 deal. I felt like Montrez could get paid this offseason. He literally just won Sixth Man of the Year. I'm sure the Raptors were interested. I'm not sure, obviously, behind the scenes what was going on with who was giving him what money, but I guess he felt comfortable, proving himself one more time with the Lakers, and I guess trying to win a ring as well. And yeah, I mean, I was a little shocked by the deal. I thought the Clippers would give him a lot of money and try to make him stay, but Lakers, obviously they got a great guy for them, and obviously with the loss of Dwight Howard, they needed a center. And for Montrezl Harrell, he gets to go to a contending team. Obviously, this hurts the Clippers, but as of last night, we know that they made a deal with someone that puts them right back into where they were. So the next player we're going to look at is Gordon Hayward. So this was a very big surprise to a lot of NBA fans. Everyone thought, $34 million, Gordon Hayward's just going to take that. Why wouldn't he take that? It's a great deal for him. And then he declined it. And obviously, if you're going to decline a 1-year, $34 million option, you're going to have, people lining up to pay you. And I guess that's what happened. I know the Knicks wanted Gordon Hayward, but they didn't want to. They wanted to keep the deal short for obvious reasons. He's 30 already. He's been injury prone a lot. And surprisingly, out of nowhere, it felt like it was going to be the Pacers. And the Hornets swooped in and said, here's 4 years, $120 million. I don't know what the Hornets are doing. Obviously, people are saying, oh, but the Hornets, they're not going to get anyone else. Like, no one wants to go to Charlotte. Well, now you can't get anyone else because you're paying this guy $30 million a year. So even if there was a guy that wanted to come, now they really can't come. Obviously, they're still gonna have money, but you just got off the Nicholas Batum contract, and you possibly just signed another Nicholas Batum contract. That's exactly what it is. Because if Gordon Hayward gets hurt again, let's say, or maybe he just starts to degress really quickly, you're still paying him $30 million. You can't be like, yo, Gordon, can I have some money back? No, it's a deal. So I don't understand that. Obviously, trying to get LaMelo a lot of pieces is going to help him succeed. You don't want him to be the only guy there. But I don't understand the deal personally. Gordon Hayward, obviously, great job. And for the Celtics, I just got to say, what are you doing? Obviously, they signed some players who we'll get into, and it kind of rebuilt their team. But if the Pacers were willing to give you Miles Turner, why wouldn't you take that? You just lost Gordon Hayward for nothing. If you had a deal, obviously you wanted Oladipo or T.J. Warren, but I mean, just take Miles Turner. You need a center. You don't need a forward. You have Tatum and Brown. You don't need a guard. You have Smart and Walker. Just take the center. I didn't understand what the Celtics were doing there. They had a sign and trade, pretty much laid down for them by the Pacers, and they just, for some reason, didn't do it. And yeah, the Hornets swooped in and I guess overpaid for him, but good for Gordon. Obviously he's been through a lot. We all saw what happened to his ankle, so I'm very happy for Gordon. I feel bad for Hornets fans, and the Celtics should be ashamed of themselves. So the next player we have so far is Goran Dragic. This was expected. I'm not going to talk a lot about this. Goran, he's 36. He's on his last legs. He's not going to be good forever. They gave him a one-on-one deal. He was great for them last year in the bubble. So, I'm not surprised they gave him $20 million. They had the money to spend. They were able to give it to him. And, he deserved it. I'm not going to say anything else. He's going to be a great point guard for them. It looks like they might move none and they need a point guard. And Goran Dragic could fill that role for a year or two more. And they could look for other point guards to sign and draft. The next player we have is Davis Bertans. I expected him to stay with the Wizards. I thought the Wizards were not going to let him go. They would pay him anything, and they gave him a 5-year, $80 million deal. Maybe a little overpaid, maybe a bit too long, because, I don't really see a high ceiling for Bertans. Bertans isn't athletic. He's not going to just gain his athleticism overnight. He's a shooter. That's what he is. And so I don't know. I think the 5 years is a little risky, but I think $60 million is not that bad. You get to keep him, and now you have Denny. I'm kind of interested to see how the Wizards do if they keep Wall. Obviously, Wall requested a trade, but so did Russell, and it seems like Russell's going to stay with the Rockets, so unless they do a swap. But still, even so, I'm excited to see that Wizards team with Roy in the second year now, Denny, Beal, and then either Wall or Westbrook most likely. So, did I not say Bertans either? I don't know. But Bertans, of course, as well on that team. So the next deal we have is the Danilo Gallinari deal. And that was a 3-year, $60 million deal by the Hawks. I saw a stat that said this was the most money ever given, or this is the biggest deal ever given to someone over 30 who's ever made an All-Star game, I believe. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big Gallinari fan. I'm a Knicks fan, as most of you guys who watch constantly know that. And, Gallinari was drafted by my Knicks. He was there for a few years before being moved for Melo. And he's a great player. He's always been a solid player wherever he's been, in the Knicks, the Nuggets. He was on the Clippers. And yeah, he's always been a great player. I love Danilo. And, I think it's a great move for the Hawks. He's a great player. He may have gotten overpaid, I would say, a little bit. But, the Hawks, they don't have the greatest team. They were the 15th seed last year in the East. They were the worst team in the East, even though they had an all-star in Trae Young. And I think they're just rebuffing their team, and I really like it. I think it's a very good team. After all the moves they've made. And I think Gallinari is going to fit in well. It gives them more shooting. Obviously, with Trae Young, you don't really need any more shooting, but Gallinari just adds more shooting to that team. The only problem with the Hawks team is that, the offense, or, their defense in the starting five is really poor, but we'll see what they could do with Clint Capella there at the 5. And yeah, for the Thunder, we all knew he was going to leave. He said goodbye 3 months ago. And we all knew the Thunder were going to rebuild after the firing of Billy Donovan. The next deal is the Jeremy Grant deal. Definitely overpaid in my opinion, $20 million. He's not on the same level as Gallinari in my opinion. He's a great player. He could be a great 6th, 7th man. He'd be an okay starter. That's how I view him. Great defensively, has somewhat of a shot, but I don't really see him getting that much better than where he is already. I like Jeremy, don't get me wrong. I just think he's a little overpaid. And I don't understand why the Pistons signed him over Christian Wood, and we'll get into that with the other signings they did. Actually, I'll just say it now. With the Mason Plumlee and Jahlil Okafor signing, they signed 3 big men, and none of those were Christian Wood. I'll never understand that. I don't care what you say. Christian Wood is part of their future. They're rebuilding. They have Killian Hayes. They drafted Sadiq Bey. They drafted Isaiah Stewart. Obviously, they're rebuilding right now. Can keep someone that's probably your best player right now that's 25 years old. I do not understand what that move was. I really don't. I think Christian Wood's going to excel on the Rockets. I really don't understand what those three signings that the Pistons did. I got to be honest. The next deal was the Joe Harris deal, and I mean, whoa, that guy was overpaid. 4 years, $75 million. That's insane. Uh, Good for the Nets for being able to re-sign him. I don't know how all these teams have that much money. I thought the Knicks were like the only team that had money, but good for him. Obviously overpaid, and obviously when Kevin Durant and Kyrie, I see a 2-year window for them to win the championship, and I feel like they'll dismantle after that. So you're still gonna have Joe Harris for 2 years. At that point, like $38 million. I'm not a big fan of it, but good for Joe Harris. And I mean, obviously, right now the Nets are trying to win the championship, so any piece they could get that's good, they'll obviously take. So it makes sense. Serge Ibaka, obviously, last night, that's what we were talking about, the Clippers. I think Montrezl Harrell's a better player, and I saw a lot of people saying that, Serge Ibaka is by far a better player. I think Serge in the playoffs excels more, and there are just those players that just play better in the playoffs. And I think Serge is going to help them stretch the floor, which was kind of a problem for them last year in the playoffs. They were kind of relying on Kawhi and Paul George to shoot, and Lou Will, and those were the three guys that they asked, they deliberately, put the ball in the hands to shoot. But now they have another guy. Obviously, they have Marcus Morris too, but Serge Ibaka, another guy that's going to actually spread the floor. Montrez did not spread the floor, as we know, and he's only 6'8". And I think it's a great signing for them. They needed a center, obviously, after Montrez left. And, I think he's comparable to Montrez. So good for the Clippers for being able to bounce right back from the loss of Montrez. And for Serge, he gets to go for a championship. The Raptors team is now going to be a 4 or 5 seed, in my opinion. Be okay. So, Serge gets a better shot, in my opinion, at winning a championship, even though he's going to the West. The next we have is Christian Wood, and I already talked about Christian Wood, but I think he's a stud. I'm a big, big fan of Christian Wood. And with the Knicks signing Obi Toppin, it looked like it wasn't likely that he was going to sign with the Knicks. And, with the Pistons signing every big man in the world besides Christian Wood, there weren't that many teams that looked like they were interested in him. But the Rockets were able to swoop him up, and if the Rockets can keep James Harden and Russell Westbrook, I absolutely love that deal. I wish they kept Covington because that would have made them even better, and that could have made them really dirty because Christian Wood could put 20 up for you a game, and he could spread the floor, and like Clint Capella wasn't able to do that for them. And you have Christian Wood who could be the 5 and spread the floor. I really like Christian Wood, and he fits the Rockets shooting perfectly. I'm a really big fan of that signing for the Rockets. I really hope they keep Russ and Harden. I hope they make more moves to make their team better. Marcus Morris with the Clippers, that was expected. He's a great, he's there in the final 5, 1 minute left, down by 2, whatever you want to say. In the crunch time, he's going to be in that lineup. He's a good player, not a great player. I don't know, 4 years, $64 million. I'm not sure, but again, it's like the Joe Harris deal. You want to keep everyone you could have if you're fighting for a championship, especially with the Clippers who traded their whole future away. So I understand it. Marcus Morris is a solid player. Deserves $64 million? No, but it's worth it to, keep your eyes on the championship. Tristan Thompson leads the cast for the Celtics. I think that's perfect for the Celtics. I was upset that the Celtics, as an NBA fan, that the Celtics didn't trade for Miles Turner when they really needed a center. And they just got their guy in Tristan Thompson. He's a great guy for them, I think. He's improving his shot. It's not all the way there yet. But, him and Aaron Baines, I like that center pairing. They didn't have really a great backup center last year. Kanter didn't really even play last year, even though he was a fine center for them. So Tristan Thompson, definitely an upgrade on their weakest spot on their team. Jay Crowder with the Suns. I mean, he's a great defensive forward. He'll only add to the depth on the Suns. It's a good deal. KCP to the Lakers. The Lakers, same thing. Got to pay them what you have to pay them to keep your shooting and also, to keep your eyes on the championship. Rajon Rondo with the Hawks. I absolutely love that deal. Is going to, mentor Trae Young. Trae Young, defensive side of the ball, needs help, and I think Rajon can help with that. And I think Rajon, just as a leader for that team, is going to be great. I really like the Hawks team this year a lot more than I did last year, and people thought they were making the playoffs. Paul Millsap with the Nuggets. They still need that forward. They signed JaMychal Green, which, I mean, he may start for them, honestly, but, always having more players, especially after you made the Western Conference Finals, always having more talent is better, and so it makes sense. It's a fine deal. Jordan Clarkson with the Jazz. They had to pay him. The reason why they traded 2 second-round picks to the Knicks, which, fine by me, I'll take that any day, was because they had to re-sign Clarkson. They wouldn't have been able to do that if they didn't trade Ed Davis's contract. So Jordan Clarkson, he's a great 6-man for them. And, yeah, I think that's a great deal. So yeah, guys, I mean that was probably the top signings of the free agency class. Obviously, there are people like Dwight Howard. Great deal for the Sixers. Will be a great backup for them. Rodney Hood. He's a great player for them. Justin Holiday, solid player for the Pacers. There are a lot of guys like that. I'm not going to talk about every single one. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox got the max, which I was expecting, so I don't really need to talk about that. Chris Dunn, he'll be a great defensive player for the Hawks. Pat Connaughton, he's a good bench player for them. And I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all the big ones. Melo's back with the Blazers. That's not that surprising to me. And yeah, I mean, I could quickly talk about Dwight for a second, I guess. I think he'll be great. The Lakers lost Dwight, but gained Montrez. So I mean, they improved in my opinion. I think in everyone's opinion, they improved on with their center position. But Dwight Howard's going to be great for the Sixers. They needed a backup center. They had Kyle O'Quinn last year, and he didn't really play. And I think Dwight could still put up good numbers for that Sixers team. And I think it's a great move for them. So yeah, guys, that was most of the big free agent signings. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if your team made some good free agent signings or really messed up bad. And yeah, I'll see you guys for episode number 54. Obviously, there are more signings to be done, and if there are enough signings, I will talk about it. I'll do a part 2. And yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you for episode number 54. Bye, guys.